Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is David Talbot. I'm Managing Director and Head of Research here at Red Cloud Securities, and I'm delighted to host a Red Cloud webinar on uranium today. We are going to speak to Blue Sky Uranium's President and CEO, Nicholas Kakos, and he will provide an overview and outlook. Then we will get to your questions. You can type your questions into the chat box at any time, and we will get to as many as we can during that portion of the program. Now, before we kick things off, first we need to discuss the fine print. During this Blue Sky webinar, forward-looking statements may be made. I direct listeners to the company's forward-looking statements outlined on page 2 of its corporate presentation, and that can be found on its corporate website, blueskyuranium.com. For Red Cloud Securities, I'd highlight this webinar is for information purposes only. It should not be considered a solicitation or recommendation to buy or sell securities. We note this call does not consider the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigation and seek their own professional advice before investing. So please see our most recent research located on the Red Cloud website for specific disclosures on Blue Sky Uranium. With that, I now turn it over to you, Nico, to update the audience on Blue Sky.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you for this opportunity. Welcome, everybody. And I'm happy to give an update on what we're working on here in Argentina with Blue Sky. For those who are new to the story, Blue Sky is a very unique uranium company. We have a project in Argentina, which is not just a single deposit, but in fact, we've discovered a new uranium-vanadium district, one that has geological similarities to many of those districts that we see in Kazakhstan, and that's an important point, and I'll address a little bit later, with the potential to make multiple deposits, become truly world-class, and to have potential operating costs that could, production costs that could rank amongst some of the lowest in the world. So with that, here's a disclaimer that Dave talked about. Just let's step back and look at Blue Sky from an investment of 20,000 foot level. We're looking at uranium market. We have a surging uranium market right now that's climbing. The larger companies, of course, moving up. This is a great backdrop in which to be involved and be working on developing a new uranium story. Of course, and I'll talk about this a little later, there's a huge in-country demand for uranium in Argentina. We'll see how Argentina is, in fact, one of the best countries in which to be involved if you've got a new uranium project. The project itself, besides the big 145-kilometer long district, which we call the Amarillo Grande, we've identified a deposit called the Ivana deposit in the very southeastern portion of it. We've got about 17 million pounds of uranium, 8 million pounds of vanadium there, and with this, it's been obviously an in-house discovery. We've been able to attract one of the most premier business groups in Argentina, Corporación Americas. They've agreed to earn up to an 80% interest in this project by providing, first of all, up to $200 million worth of investment into the project. So that breaks up into $35 million to get the project through feasibility study stage over the next coming years, and then afterwards to spend an additional $160 million to take it to production. The good thing about this story from Blue Sky and Blue Sky investors' point of view is that we get a carried interest going all the way through into production without having to put up any of additional funding ourselves. Let's see here. Here's a map of Argentina, the southern part of South America there. The province of Rio Negro, that's where our Amarillo Grande project is situated. It's that larger yellow oblong dot there. The project itself is composed of more than 300,000 hectares, and that's a project that we have discovered, staked, and own 100% through our wholly owned subsidiary. The Blue Sky, we're just a note here on who's the team, the management team behind it. We're managed by a Grosso Group or a Grosso Group member. Grosso Group is a very well-known and established team in Argentina with more than 3 decades of experience there, led by Joe Grosso, who actually uncovered the huge potential that in 1992, the country, for the first time ever, permitted foreign investment in the mining industry. Prior to that, there wasn't any foreign investment. So it's the 7th largest country in the world, Argentina, has seen very, very little exploration, and it had a lot of upside. And we've had a lot of success over the last 3 decades with other companies that we've managed. A listing here on this page shows at least 4 discoveries that we've made that are now deposits and or into production, and there's additional ones as well that we've made with respect to lithium up in the northern part of the country. In terms of more specifically with Blue Sky, I'll just note that we have an excellent and dedicated team here. Joe Grosso, of course, who's the chairman. He's not just the founder of Grosso Group, but he's also been inducted in Argentina's Hall of Fame for mining, and he brings a real long wealth of contacts and network of contacts throughout, not just in the government levels, but also throughout the entire mining industry in Argentina. Just a little background here on uranium. I'm not going to dwell on this. This chart here, I guess, really the point I'm trying to make is, well, if we step back and we look at the world and see, well, where does all the world's uranium come from? That big blue piece of pie there belonging to Kazakhstan shows that nearly half of the world's uranium comes from Kazakhstan. And there's a good reason for why it can produce that much there. And it's not just its abundance, but also it's the ability to be able to produce uranium at very, very low and competitive costs. And this is an important point because of the similarities that our project has with these deposits in Kazakhstan. In terms of the uranium price, I think, Dave here, who introduced, is much more qualified than I am, but I'm sure he'll agree that we're seeing decades forward of elevated prices of uranium. There's a really profound new shift in terms of acceptance of nuclear power that's been, that's been understood with the population at large, whereby nuclear power now is recognized as safe, reliable, and an excellent source of baseload energy. Our energy needs in the future are all projected to increase. The best source of carbon-free energy and baseload energy right now to be able to provide the basis for all this is nuclear energy. So the demand for uranium is constantly there, and it's constantly increasing. We're seeing new nuclear reactors being built around the world. Small modular reactors are also coming into play, creating an additional demand on uranium. But to be able to find and explore and develop and get new uranium projects up and mines up and coming, it can be a long, slow, and arduous process. So this supply gap will persist in the coming years here. And the pricing of uranium, just suffice to say that it's really the long-term contracts that really matter. Long-term contracts typically done at a premium to spot price, and these are typically from the uranium mine and the nuclear utility, and they're contracts that can last up to 7 or 10 years or more. Like I said at the outset, in Argentina is a nuclear country. In fact, it's a very well-respected, has a very well-respected and very highly developed and sophisticated nuclear industry in that country. They've actually been involved in nuclear energy since the 50s, almost as long as the U.S. has. And they're involved in every facet of the nuclear cycle: nuke power plants, research reactors, particle accelerators. They have a enrichment plant actually in the province where our project is in the province of Rio Negro. What they don't have is a production of uranium. They import all their needs of uranium to power all these nuclear facilities. So Blue Sky, with our project, even right now at this stage, represent the largest, most advanced nuclear deposit in Argentina. So our goal here is to fast track our project and to become Argentina's first domestic supplier for nuclear fuel. Now, very briefly, I'll just go through our project, give an overview. Here's a claim map of the project. We discovered this nearly 20 years ago. We flew a big airborne survey in the area. And you can see remnants of that there. You can see the different anomalies lighting up. We staked this property, and we've been exploring it. It's a huge piece of property. It's a corridor, really, that represents a 145-kilometer long trend by 50 kilometers wide. It takes a long time for a junior company to go through and explore and identify all the targets for all this area, and we've done that. But in more recently, this is where things began to really speed up. It was in 2017 when our very good geologist Guillermo Pensado came in, and he was been able to identify, make the discovery of the Ivana deposit. A year later, we was able to identify a new resource estimate. A year later, we've got a PEA up and going. So when progress happens at such a fast pace, it means that there's something really obvious here and something very simple to develop. So, and this is exactly what it's been. In fact, our deposit here is a superficial deposit within the first 25 meters of the surface. The area itself, the province where we're active, the province of Rio Negro, it's a strong nuclear jurisdiction. It's very mining friendly. There are other mining companies in the area and oil and gas companies in the area. And despite the arid and desolate picture that you see here below, showing hardly any population, there's an excellent infrastructure because of all those other activities that I mentioned there. There's power, rail, road networks. There's a deep sea port nearby. Like I said earlier, also a pilot uranium enrichment plant. So this is an excellent area in which to be active in for us. The mineralization itself, you can see from the picture there, the mineralization is that yellow powder that's coating the rock. The yellow powder is called carnotite. It's a uranium-vanadium mineral, and that's where we get our mineralization. The rock itself doesn't have any mineralization, and you can see from this whole picture here that the surface is not consolidated. It's unconsolidated, so there's no blasting or crushing required in terms of going forward in development. Just need a digger. So this potentially shows how it can be very low cost. And these types of carnotite deposits, sandstone, superficial types, are well known throughout the world. In fact, are known in some of the largest, uranium mines in the world. The geological comparison that we have is with some of these in Kazakhstan. In Kazakhstan, we're seeing groundwaters coming in from the mountains, flowing down, hitting a redox agent and just depositing the uranium. And you can see from all those yellow dots there are multiple mines that have been discovered there. And some of these uranium mines can be absolutely enormous. Like, for example, you look at the Inkai mine, over 240 million pounds of uranium with a grade of 0.03%. These are, again, grades that are similar to what we're finding. And you look over on Blue Sky, we've got the same kind of situation. You've got groundwaters that are coming in from the Andes, carrying rich in uranium. They hit these organic matter, which act as a redox agent, and they deposit out the uranium. And, we've made our first discovery here in Ivana. In Kazakhstan, they spent the last 50 or 70 years developing this zone. We're just getting started here. But the potential is really exciting and really enormous. Our resource statement here shows that we've got 17 million pounds of uranium grading at 0.039%, very similar to the grade that we quoted at, I talked about our Inkai deposit in Kazakhstan, and 8.1 million pounds of vanadium. Now, vanadium is interesting because it's also has a domestic market for that. It's used as a steel hardener. Argentina has an oil and gas industry that manufactures these steel pipes, so they definitely have a use for that as they currently import all the vanadium needs. The deposit itself, it's here's a plan view of it. is a 5-kilometer arcuate mineralized corridor with a high-grade zone in the central portion there, shown by the more orangey dot colors. And in terms of the metallurgy, in other words, how do we get the uranium out? Very straightforward, tried and true method. Basically, with a digger, we get the material out, we put it through a screening process of wet scrubbing, and then with that, what happens is we remove all these large rocks and pebbles, and we decrease the mass that we're dealing with by 3/4, but at the same time, we increase the grade fourfold, and then we take that remaining material and put it on alkaline leach pad, sodium carbonate bicarbonate. Again, a very tried and true method, and very environmentally friendly, which also means very cost effective. And we're able to get an overall recovery of 85% for uranium and 53% for vanadium. And in terms of mining it, a schematic idea here is very simple. Divide up the deposit into cells, go in, dig up one cell, screen it, scrub it, put it on a leach pad, and then backfill it. So there's no reclamation costs, again, reducing any environmental costs that could be required there in the future. The 2024, we did updated our preliminary economic assessment, our PEA, basically because we wanted to incorporate the more recent uranium prices. And here we really focused on a couple of metrics, at least from my point of view. Number one, I wanted to know, what does it cost to put, something like this into production? And we're showing a pre-production capital cost to run around $160 million. The reason I consider that metric important was because there's potential within the area, 30-kilometer radius, to make additional deposit discoveries. And then the idea is that we could run this as a hub and spoke type of production facility, so that there isn't really any material additional capital costs required. So it gives us an idea of what's required to put this into production. And then in terms of projecting what the cost to get a single pound of uranium price is, if you look at just the cash costs, it's under $24. If you look at the all-in sustaining costs, it's under $25 a pound of uranium. So very, very low cost, very cost effective, very competitive on a global stage. And, just this deposit here as it stands, we're projecting an 11-year production mine life here, producing 1.5 million pounds of uranium a year. Argentina currently imports about just over 700,000 pounds a year. We're projecting they probably would want to stockpile additional amounts, so they probably would buy all of it. But as we make additional discoveries and moving forward, there would be opportunities for exporting it. And the other neat thing, of course, to keep in mind is, as Argentina is a nuclear country, all the rules and criteria for putting a uranium mine into production are already pre-stipulated. We just have to follow the recipe, so to speak. It's not much different than putting a copper mine or a gold mine into production. It's already pre-stipulated, so we have the ability here to fast track something like this and moving forward. Let's see here. And now that we step back and look at the whole target again, look at the whole package of property again, we can see here from the map, I wish it was a little bigger, there's the Ivana deposit, and all the numbers that are around there, going all the way up to the northern part of the property. These are all targets that we've identified that have potential for making additional uranium discoveries. So right now, we have a partner for the Ivana deposit. We just announced today that the partner is actually doubling expenditures to move the deposit to feasibility study. The idea is to get there within the next year or so that we can make that decision for production and then move that forward as quickly as possible. The new regime in Argentina, Javier Milei, very business friendly, very mining friendly. In fact, he used to work for this organization, Corporación América. So we have a good in there, and we think we can be a very smooth transition taking this forward into production. And as well, we're looking at putting additional funds here to raise additional to explore these additional targets. There's an enormous potential here to make multiple deposits throughout this entire zone. Sorry, I already spoke about this. This is the joint venture. Again, like I said, we're moving up forward very, very quickly here, doubling, and the idea is to get the feasibility study completed within the next 12 months or so. In addition to that, we have other projects outside of the Amarillo Grande. We got some projects in the south province, the province of Chubut, which are very early stage. And these other projects here have in situ recovery potential, and these were recently acquired, and they're situated in the sort of in the western side of Argentina, next to the province there of Mendoza. They've got big potential. These are right now being looked at and explored. We'll have an update on these coming up fairly soon. And that's really the story here. The story is that we've got a great discovery here. We've got a resource that's most of the resources are already in the indicated category. The PEA that we've done to date establishes a floor value for the company in the backdrop of rising uranium prices. Our partner, Corporación Americas, they're one of the best known groups in Argentina. It's family owned by the Uranium family. The Uranium family is to Argentina, I guess, what Carlos Slim, for those who may know, is to Mexico. Really well known and a very capable group of putting this forward into production with not just the expertise, but also the right network of contacts to move this forward. And beyond that, we have a huge portfolio of projects with excellent potential that we're looking to advance on a 100% owned basis. So the value creation potential here for Blue Sky is quite enormous. Basically, lots of blue sky and blue sky. And there's our market cap and share ownership. Just, we have a market cap of around 20 million, and I believe that's relatively undervalued right now. But as you see the larger caps beginning to move up and get properly valued, just trickle down, and this is I'm hoping that this is going to reflect a better valuation for us. And that's it, and I'm ready to take questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Nico. Very informative presentation. You got some kudos online here. So we're now going to start some Q&A questions here. Reminder, everybody online, you can type your questions into the chat box. Let's, I guess, start off with the bigger picture here. You did say Argentina is a nuclear country. I think it's pretty clear. It's got nuclear power research reactors. I believe it can create medical isotopes as well. How driven is the government to help encourage domestic uranium production at this time?
The government is very driven. The government is very driven to help develop all mining activity in Argentina. They recognize the relatively undeveloped state of mining industry in that country. They recognize the potential huge amounts of revenues that mining can bring to the government, and a government like Argentina is always in need of additional revenues. So there's been a lot of regulations that are being cut and streamlining, and incentives as well for mining companies to make new investments there, for tax incentives and depreciation incentives. And we're seeing some big investments coming in. We've seen some multi-billion-dollar investments, Rio Tinto, BHP recently, and so forth. So the country has made a remarkable turnaround and has become really a business darling, and in fact, a very much in the mining industry. Now, with respect to uranium itself, we are always in discussion with the Atomic Energy Commission in Argentina and others, and they are all very aware of what we're working on. And with respect to this got a lot of press coverage in Argentina, our transaction with Corporación Americas, and I think the government is extremely happy and waiting for us to move ahead and get some uranium to feed their nuclear reactors there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And are there any plans for conversion or enrichment facilities in Argentina at this point?
There is an enrichment facility there right now, so they can do that all domestically there. Yeah, from our vantage point, we pass that baton on to Argentina, and I think they're set up for that.
Okay. Sounds good. You spoke about uranium contracts in your intro as well. Have you been approached by anyone yet for potential offtakes at this stage? And who would be the buyers? I would assume they'd be nuclear utilities.
They're utilities. They're a different organization. We have been approached, but I think at this point, our focus is really get that feasibility study tied up, ready to go, make that decision, and then with our partner, we'll make the decision as to whether offtake is the right way to finance this or not, because they're well funded. They've got the monies to put this forward and into production. But it's a decision, I guess it's a discussion that we're planning to have a little later, further down the road.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And, how about as far as a well-defined social environmental permitting process that Ivana has to go through? Is this well known in Argentina?
Yes, it is. It's all been well prescribed. We've spent years, of course, being a good social citizen, and within the province that we're active, we employ local people. There's a university there in Rio Negro that produces that actually has a department in geology for uranium geologists. We take a lot of these uranium geologists and give them practicums on our property, so we establish a goodwill. We maintain very good relations and try to be a good corporate citizen in the area with respect to environmental permitting and social permitting. It's all part of the feasibility study anyway, so all this is all underway right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And maybe discuss how the COAM partnership came to be, and perhaps why you see the benefits of having that under a single JV company at this point.
Well, for the Ivana deposit, right? Not for the rest, right?
Correct.
Yes. COAM approached us in wanting to learn after we had published last year our 2024 PEA. They liked the numbers, and they wanted to get into the uranium industry, and they saw the potential here, and they approached us. And we felt that this was an excellent group with whom to partner, because they understand the business environment in Argentina. They understand how to obtain approvals and whatnot. So for us, it was a great way to move forward. And they're also a very aggressive group in Argentina that, when they got involved in the oil and gas industry, I think almost a decade ago, they were an unknown entity, and they're one of the biggest in Argentina now. So they have a reputation of whatever they do, they don't just meet, they exceed expectations. So that was a great attribute, and I think that's going to bring a real positive element in terms of Ivana and moving it forward aggressively. And we saw that in today's press release, where we announced first year's budget was supposed to be $3 million. We're talking about $6 million. Let's go ahead and move this forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll probably get to that in a minute. Maybe elaborate a little bit on the terms of the agreement as far as your partners earn in. Does Blue Sky retain 100% ownership until then?
We retain 100%. We have 100% ownership now. They have to spend $35 million. These are all U.S. figures to get to a feasibility study. At that point, they earn 49% interest. And then when the decision is positive, they decide, okay, we're going to go forward and make a positive construction decision. They get 51%. They get the controlling stake. And then afterwards, they have to put in $160 million for construction as a minimum, and if it costs more, they arrange for funding to put additional amount, and at that point they earn 80% of the project. In addition to that, we've defined an area surrounding Ivana, which is around 15 kilometers or so, that hosts some additional uranium targets. They will spend their money to do the exploration on these targets. These targets are 100% owned by Blue Sky, and if a discovery is made, then the joint venture would purchase it from Blue Sky and bring it in. So these are additional potential sources of revenue for Blue Sky and our shareholders.
Okay. So with that COAM deal in place, and them providing the funding for not only Ivana, but actually for a little bit of this exploration work on your ground as well, why are you raising funds at this point?
Well, we're raising funds because we own the balance of the Amarillo Grande properties, which have an excellent upside and exploration potential, especially now that we understand the controls of the geology that led to these mineralization and the pathfinders associated with that. Now we have a model to chase after and can be much more effective in making these new discoveries. Plus, we have other projects as well. The projects with the in situ recovery. These are projects that are yielding some interesting results, and I think we want to be able to allocate some funds there. There's some potential to make new discoveries there. Plus, we have projects to the south in the neighboring province of Chubut. These are excellent projects that up until now have been no-go projects because the province of Chubut has been against mining. But my understanding is that there's a wholesale change that's coming into effect right now. So we want to be ready when the mining gets triggered, gets the green light there. We want to hit the ground running.
And especially if you're looking at a different type of mining, ISR or something like that as well, correct?
That's right. And well, ISR, the interesting thing about these ISR properties is they're based on these oil fields, and there's been an enormous amount of oil and gas drilling there, and all the drill logs right now are available. They're public information. So we're just doing a desktop study looking at these, and we're looking at some very interesting anomalies here that I think we definitely want to follow up.
Yeah, no different than how uranium was found in Wyoming or Texas.
That's right.
Really, that's the way they mine it there as well, ISR. So, good. Okay. Let's talk about risk, maybe for a second here. This is a well-known deposit type. Carnotite's already being produced elsewhere. Deposits on surface, processing straightforward. And then the jurisdiction, how do all these combine to reduce risk versus, say, other projects?
Well, like you said, once you know carnotite and sandstone type deposits, I mean, these are tried and true, types of deposits that are mined throughout the world. You saw in my in the metallurgy and the mine plan, it's more akin to a gravel operation than it is to an open pit mining operation. So that really manages in terms of that risk very, very well. And from a country point of view, well, there's Argentina, it always makes the news sometimes for the wrong reasons because of the politicians. Having been active in Argentina for 3 decades and seeing different governments of all political stripes come through, there's always been a common thread in that mining has always been supported by the left, by the right, by the populists, whatever it might be. So because they recognize the potential for additional revenues. But with this current government, it's so business friendly and it's so radical in overhauling in Argentina in such a positive way to attract foreign investment. I think this represents a very unique window and possibly a wholesale change in the Argentine political economy and there that I think is going to support not just mining economy, but just general investment on a much longer term basis here. We've seen the IMF release monies, capital controls are being removed, so money can begin to flow in and out of Argentina. We've seen inflation get conquered, and with the cutting of regulation and inviting of foreign investment there, I think that's how the government is looking to create new jobs to tackle any looming unemployment issues that may be there.
Right. Okay. Now, the press release today talked a little bit about completing economic studies as soon as possible. Are you planning on going straight from PEA to feasibility study? Would you stop at a PFS on the way?
That's what our thinking is right now. That a PFS may not be required. It's certainly not required from a regulatory point of view. So if we can, as we move forward and we sort of hit the points of the PFS that would that we need to see before moving forward, we're going to do that without formally doing a PFS and go straight to a feasibility study. Because like I said, there's a real incentive here to move this project forward as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're looking at an 11-year life of mine right now at Ivana alone. Are there any ways you might scale this up further before you get to feasibility study, perhaps maybe improve production rates, project economics?
All of that's being looked at, including the identification of additional resources.
Okay. Yeah, and that was part and parcel to today's announcement today, right? You've got the infill drilling plan for this year?
That's right, yes.
Yep.
Plus the exploration drilling that's going to be ongoing as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, so that exploration drilling is still relatively close to Ivana, and this is Amarillo Grande is a huge project. I've as long as I've known Blue Sky, you've been 16, 17 years or so. You started at the Santa Barbara discovery, then the Anit discovery, then the Ivana, before you settled here. Do you think that is changing a little bit here? Are you going to go back beyond the limits of Ivana and start looking more regionally? And this is without the JV company?
Well, the JV company is going to have his hands full with Ivana and the immediate surrounding area.
Yeah.
And, it's and yes, now that we have more knowledge, we're going to work backwards and look, because we feel like there's lots of potential here to make new discoveries throughout the Amarillo Grande. But as Argentina evolves, and we're always looking for other projects within Argentina and other opportunities. There were past producing mines in the past in Argentina. They were mothballed in the late 80s and early 90s simply because they were all held by the government, and the government ran out of money. So we're always looking at new opportunities in Argentina. It's a big country with excellent potential, and and there's potential to find big stuff, just like Amarillo Grande. I mean, the story of Amarillo Grande is actually quite a fun story as to how we discovered it. It was a very high-tech method, Dave. We had an exploration geologist from Argentina who took a radiometric scintillometer, strapped an antenna on his car, and drove around the country. And wherever he got a reading, he made a note of that. So, but when he was driving into Rio Negro, and he started at Santa Barbara, the reading went right off the charts. So he thought, okay, we're onto something here. And that's what tipped us off. We came in and we did an airborne survey, and bingo, this huge discovery has been there all this time, remaining to be found. So these kinds of things are very possible in Argentina, and I think this is what's really very exciting.
Okay, so new opportunities besides those two ISR projects in Chubut you're talking about. Would you be searching for new opportunities on the project or off the project elsewhere?
Both. We're always being aggressive that way. Okay. And there's never a case where we have too much than we can chew, because we can always bring in partners to allow us to leverage exploration of these opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And will the government give you any grants or provide incentive for additional exploration outside of Ivana?
I don't think the government's going to be so much in the business in terms of providing grants, but there are, I guess, other incentives that the government can provide, tax guarantees and accelerated depreciation formulas and whatnot to allow us to continue. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what are you planning to do with those two ISR projects so far this year?
Well, we're planning right now, as we finish our desktop study, the idea is to go in and do some geophysics and identify drill targets and do some of our own drilling and test them out.
Okay, sounds good. So, I believe I haven't checked the share price today. I think, according to a listener, it's around 5 cents. Despite all the positive news the company's getting, what else do you think you can do to help increase the market value of Blue Sky? And are you guys buying shares down at these levels?
Well, yeah, we are, and we are. Management and our associates and family are the largest group of shareholders for Blue Sky. We've held on to these shares and bought them for a long time, because we always believed that we had a very significant discovery here, which we do. And I think what we're doing right now that we've got the deal behind us is we're beginning to reach out with our investor relations and make more presentations, and in particular, as we're making the transition now from an exploration company to a development company, beginning to target institutional investors, and which I think is going to be really critical in terms of changing the valuation of the company.
Okay, perfect. Maybe, we had a flurry of questions and they went pretty quick, but you answered them fairly quickly as well. Maybe just to wrap up here, I guess, what are the key catalysts for Blue Sky that might help move the stock over the next 12 months or so?
I think the key catalysts are going to be the progress that we're going to be making on our feasibility study as we get closer to that, the exploration that the partnership, the joint venture partnership is doing on the immediate area around. As we make a new discovery there, that requires a wholesale revaluation of what we're doing, and it leaves the imagination to believe in that way. And then as we get going on exploration on the remaining targets plus the ISR targets, I think we're going to have news flow coming out on a very regular basis over the next 12 months. And as we make and announce new results, I think this is going to significantly impact our valuation.
Exactly. Okay. And as uranium prices continue to rise here, the producers are moving, the developers are moving, but I don't think that we've come down to the small guys yet. So,
it's coming. It's coming.
It's coming. So, okay. Well, great, Nick. Appreciate the discussion today. That's Nico from Blue Sky Uranium. Thank you for joining us today.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.